Okay, so Francine's not going to be able to join us at all. So let me go ahead and try this again. It's 7:02. Let's call to order and start with a roll call. Michael?
Mike Dick is here.
Francine Lyons, not present. Sam?
Sam Wakeman here.
Susan?
Here.
Ralph?
Ralph Dormitzer here.
Brian Host here. And hopefully we've got Jason Federico online, do we?
He has not joined yet.
Okay. So the first item of business on the agenda is the town clerk voting booth. Michelle, he's going to cover that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard anything from him, Michelle, or should we go ahead and cover town hall first?
If you could skip over to town hall first, that'd be great. I'm sending him a note now to make sure that he joins.
Sure. I mean, if we have Chris online, unless anyone objects, I hate to have people sort of standing and waiting. If we can go ahead and move on to the next item. Does everyone feel that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, let's do it. So the town hall construction partial pre-funding. This is part of Article 4 in the warrant for special town meeting. Chris was kind enough to pull together the draft town manager motion, which he forwarded to me earlier this evening, and I've circulated it to the group. I know we haven't had much time, but it's a short read. Hopefully people have seen it. And with that as an intro, I guess I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Brian, and congratulations on your new title. Moving up the ranks.
Well, thank you. This is either going to be fun for me or funny for everybody else, one or the other.
It'll be fun for everybody. This is so again, the policy that governs the distribution of free cash points to one-time items as a primary, and capital being one of the predominant one-time cost items as a predominant place to put the money like this. And with this project moving forward, this is a down payment, and that's all it is. As you see from the motion, and again, I'm waiting for council just to make sure that it's worded right. This 750 would be just put aside pending the eventual approval of the project by town meeting, whether it's the plan as it's being presented, or if something changes down the road, some kind of repair, or it could be released back into for use for other projects. So all this does is set it aside. It doesn't commit it to be spent, but it makes it available for spending pending a vote, which I expect will probably take place in May at this point.
Okay, so basically we're not approving the project per se or any particular design. We're simply setting aside $750,000 for a project that we ultimately hope will be approved, and it will be released into that project if and when that project is approved. Otherwise, it gets released back into free cash. Is that sort of the spirit of it, Chris?
Correct, or assigned to something else, right? So, but right. What it does is it kind of segregates it away without plan. There will be no spending of it unless and until there's further action at town meeting.
Okay. So I think that at least my sense was one of the concerns around this, or the primary concern that I was picking up on was, okay, does the language actually sort of make clear that that's what's going to happen? So I guess I'd just be curious what other members of the committee feel having read this, and whether or not they've got comfort on it.
I've got a few questions. No one else wants to go? Okay.
Please, Michael.
I want to be clear on the details that are going to go into the minutes, if nothing else. This is a one-time cost item. It's a set aside for the town hall project. If approved, at the 2022 annual town meeting in May. Do I have that right?
That's the plan right now, yes.
Okay. If it's not approved at the annual town meeting, the funds will be returned where? Back
The
into
funds
free
could be,
cash?
well, at that point, it'll be, well, they could be redirected. I mean, they're already, they could be put, you know, they could be put to anything. I mean, it would probably wait until the fall before they repurpose, but they would be undesignated. They would just sit there undesignated. It wouldn't be spendable until town meeting takes action. So free cash can't be spent unless town meeting approves a use for it. Unless it's covering a deficit or something, but in this case, this money would be set aside into this fund for town hall with the expectation.
And Chris, just mechanically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it couldn't be repurposed without a subsequent vote at a town meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
So it's no
that's-
different than any other articles. I mean, if they don't get executed or they don't get spent fully, sooner or later we repurpose them by vote at town meeting or
Right.
special town meeting. Okay.
Right. And in this case, it would, but I mean, I guess it could, if things didn't happen at town meeting in the spring for whatever reason, they could be held to the fall, the special in the fall, and then it could be repurposed at that point for something else. But the money wouldn't be spent otherwise. It would just sit there. So.
Okay, so here's what I'm putting in here. If not approved at the annual 2022 annual town meeting, the funds will not be spent, but be held for any other purpose, used only if approved by a subsequent town meeting. Do I have that right?
That's the intent. I mean, I'm still waiting to work with council on the specific wording of it, but you could see, Mike, from the language that was presented, that's the intent. And that's the way it's going to be set up, that it goes to a fund. It's set up with a trigger that it's only going to be spent should a project be approved. If a project's not approved, it's just sitting there for if that's what town, you know, whether it's in the fall or at some future point. So it won't get spent. It gets set aside.
Yeah.
It goes into a fund. It doesn't get touched. In the spring town meeting, I would expect be presented with the committee's work and next steps. And at that point, town meeting will decide, yes, we're going, or no, we're not, or some other hybrid answer. And then the money will go from there. It won't, but nothing will happen between now and that decision.
Right, and is it only you, Chris, that would propose a repurposing, or could that come from other motions?
That can, well, I mean, it can come from anybody. I mean, you know, the way the system works is that the town manager is historically, you know, charged with the motions. That said, they're not my intent, right? It's the intent of the select board or, you know, the capital budget committee or whatever it is that's drafting the motions, right? Things that are put on the warrant are generally affirmative motions, right? The motion is to support or adopt or spend or whatever, right? So if there's a, you know, we repurpose articles from time to time now, right? Money's been set aside for something that maybe you don't spend all of it on. And if it's capital related, we generally come back and you'll see in the long motion and annual, we repurpose money that's left over. Maybe the fire truck is $5,000 or something left in it, and we repurpose it and it goes back into new capital projects. And that's something like that would likely happen with this if for whatever reason a project doesn't happen, or if we suddenly get a big giant grant and the state comes along and says, here, town, here's all the money you need. And you can build it. We don't need to use your own money. Then we can repurpose it for whatever you want. So,
Okay. I have another question on the
it's
750,000.
conversation, Mike.
Say again?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There was a little bit.
Okay. How did we arrive at the $750,000 figure?
Don and I talked and we looked at the numbers, and it seemed like a reasonable amount along. The goal is to fund 50% of this project. That's where we're looking to get to, at least 50% funded through free cash or grants or CPC or whatever other kind of money can be put aside. And with the amount that was available this year, 1.6+ million in available free cash, it seemed like the logical place and time. And again, we talked about it and we presented to the select board and they talked about it. we presented to advisory, and they talked about it. So it seemed to make sense. That's the, at the moment, the single largest capital project that's moving through the conversation phase. It's not the only one, but it's the one that's closest to a final decision point. And the select board's position and everyone else's has been, let's fund this as much as possible. Let's limit the amount of borrowing as much as possible, which means we want to pay down as much as possible. So it seemed like a logical place. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure there was funds available for other projects, including school facilities, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. Does that answer your question?
Right. So what I'm going to put into the meeting minutes is that the $750,000 figure comes from a consensus of the town manager, the town finance director, the town hall building committee, and the advisory. And the intent is to limit bonding by applying free cash first. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think it captures it. Yeah.
All right, great. Okay. Oh, those are all my questions.
Sam, any questions?
No, I understand what's happening.
Susan?
You have to unmute, Susan.
Sorry, my dogs are barking. I don't have any questions specifically on the mechanics of what, this particular article. I guess it's a little different than we've done in the past. We don't generally put free cash aside, so maybe a little bit of a, you talk about that a little bit as to why we're changing that methodology.
I would sort of keeping with the methodology because it's a very specific project here, and there's a general consensus that it should be paid down as much as possible, right? The goal, the capital budget's position, and it's been the town's general position, is to borrow as little as possible, right? Pay cash when you can. Obviously, it's pretty unusual, particularly one of the magnitude of the town hall project or something larger. That said, as much cash as we put aside is good. So, in prior years, when we haven't had defined projects, the first contribution usually goes right into the capital stabilization fund. In this case, this being the largest, potential open project, it made sense for this to get that larger slot, in keeping with the general policy. Spending it on capital items and things that are one-time costs, which fits in with the whole concept of, again, reducing the amount that's borrowed and maximizing the amount of pay down you can on all projects. And 750 is not going to pay for a whole building, but it's a nice down payment should a project move forward.
Thank you, Chris.
Ralph?
Yeah, the only thing, Chris, I would recommend is that, like the capital budget committee, when you have a project which does not use all of the cash that's been allotted for it, it usually goes back into the capitalizations, that is the capital stabilization fund. That's the kind of the process. It would seem to me, even in this case, you might want your motion to be explicit about that if in fact the town hall project fails at the regular town meeting, the 750,000 reverts to such and such, like the free cash or something. It reverts to something. In other words, I wouldn't leave it open-ended. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's my opinion about how I would deal with it. Just make it specific. I think that would also alleviate questions that people have. So.
I agree with you.
Thank you for the comments, Ralph. I'm talking to council now, and we'll see if Caroline has a different take on how some of this stuff should be written. So I'll be circling back with her in the next couple of days. So again, and this is, it came out of free cash. Again, and because town meeting allocates money for projects, it would have to be reallocated at some point if it doesn't get spent. And again, remember, there's even if whatever proposal finally comes out of the town hall building committee doesn't pass, there's substantial repair work that has to be done in the building anyway. So it could very well be repurposed for those purposes, but that would have to be tied to something very specific. And again, I think it could be, that could happen in the spring, right? I mean, nothing's going to happen to it. It's going to sit there for the next 5 months. And I think by spring, there'll be a little bit more clarity on what the next steps are. And that might be the logical place, whether it be put towards, town hall project or to some other use. But I appreciate your comments.
Well, the simplest thing, Chris, the simplest thing is it reverts to free cash to be then reallocated at a town meeting. That's just simple words. So without elaborating, you don't need to elaborate. Just say it goes back to a fund, and that fund then gets reallocated based on the vote of town meeting. It's straightforward. Then
I'll double check. I hear you. Let me. Again, I'm talking with counsel on the drafts. I'll see what her suggestion for that comment.
Thanks. Okay.
So, without taking a position on whether you do or don't do that, I mean, I guess one scenario that's spinning through my head is, okay, what if they're not ready at annual town meeting, which we expect they will be, by the way, but what if for any reason this slides to special town meeting? I'm not sure you'd want this to necessarily default to free cash, although I guess it's not the end of the world. You could always just reappropriate it back in. It would boost your free cash in fiscal 22 if that happened. Fiscal 23 if that happened, but I'm not sure.
I think the cleanest way would just to have it stay as an article and then be repurposed by town meeting.
Yep.
In the event, like you said, Brian, that for some reason town hall building and it doesn't go through at annual, then we don't have to go back and kind of go through this again. We'll have the article set aside.
I totally see Ralph's point. The only question is, do you want that to happen instantaneously to annual, or do you want to give it, another meeting before it reverts back to free cash? That would just be the thought. Maybe just add special town meeting as the other alternative, right?
Yeah, or say at a town meeting as opposed to the town meeting, right? At a future town meeting or something like that.
Well, that kind of extends it forever. Anyway, I don't mean to overcomplicate it. Ralph's point's spot on. I was just thinking about a corner case, and that may not be necessarily constructive to start engineering for every possibility.
Again, I'm talking to council. I'll see what we can do. The key point is that it's not getting spent between now and May. It's just going aside. So, and
or whenever the thing gets approved. Yeah. Right.
And again, if the state comes along with or Joe Biden comes along with a big check and hands it to us, that's great.
Okay. Well, I guess my thought on this, just having circled the loop of the entire committee present, is that this is this is different in the sense that, at least in all the time I've been on capital budget committee, I've never actually seen us save in advance to make a down payment on a major capital expenditure that we knew was coming our way. So I think this conversation in and of itself signals progress with regards to our financial position and our ability and willingness to plan ahead and actually be disciplined and save, and not just save for our capex as opposed to just borrowing for it. So I once we get the structure right, I feel very good about the concept. And I guess I would just quickly ask the committee if people feel like they're ready to vote on this.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to vote on this item.
I recommend that we approve, or I propose that we recommend the spending of $750,000 out of free cash for the town hall project.
Anyone second?
Okay. Could I
want to
just
say spending? We're not really spending it.
I think that maybe we should use the language that Chris has given us already, which is which says specifically, let's see, 750,000 of that figure is to be set aside in a special fund for the town hall project to be used only after approval of the final project proposal by town meeting. And that, in other words, you have I would use the very language Chris has already proposed to us. Wouldn't you suggest that?
Makes sense. It may change a little bit, but we'll be awfully close anyway.
Yeah.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, because I think that is explicitly what is intended here, okay? The only thing this does not say, and it shall be revert to, I don't know, revert to to free cash in the event that the project is not approved. So, I mean, that's the sort of the gist of it all, so.
Well, Ralph, if we voted that way, and then that doesn't actually find its way into the town manager's motion, then we've got, a disconnected vote, right?
Yeah, so we could use just the language here, which is what Chris's proposed motion is, actually,
I mean, that would be my preference. It's not, if
Okay.
we're comfortable with this and we're comfortable with the spirit of this, I hate to box in specific language that council hasn't approved yet.
Okay, so the motion that therefore would read 750,000 of that figure. I guess you'd have to go back and correct that a little bit because it refers back to the 1,014,000. But anyway, 750,000 of that figure to be shall be set aside in a special fund for the town hall project to be used only after approval of the project proposal by town meeting. That's all it has to say.
So did you set that forth in the form of a motion, Ralph?
Yeah, so I'd make that a motion. Yeah, right. I can read that. I can read that again if you want it.
Actually, just let me ask a point of order. Are you able to make a motion as an associate member?
Probably not, but I'll suggest it. Okay.
Okay. Would someone else like to make the motion?
I can do it. I make a motion to approve the appropriation of free cash, $750,000 to be set aside in a special fund for the town hall project to be used only after approval of the final project proposal by town meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Michael Dick?
No.
No, not in favor, Michael?
Not in favor.
Okay. Sam Wakeman?
Yes. Sam Wakeman, yes.
Susan Franklin?
Yes.
Brian Host? Aye. Ralph, technically you don't vote, is that correct? Would you like to?
Only if you don't have a quorum. That's all. Right.
Okay. We have a quorum. Michael, without without pressing you to a point of being uncomfortable, would you be willing to share your whatever issue it is that caused you to vote nay on this?
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with the language. I feel that Ralph's suggestion is a good one.
Yep.
And I understand that Chris is going to do his best or is willing to bring it to town council. That doesn't mean it's going to be set up that way. I would prefer to be much more specific on the use, what happens to that money if town meeting does not approve the project. So that's my rationale. But you've got your vote and it's been approved. So off we go to our next item.
Okay. Just a question, Michael. If when Chris runs this by council, the language changes, I guess it might be worthwhile to discuss offline, just, whether or not your position on the matter would change. And I guess we could always re-vote it prior to STM, but we have a supportive vote at this point for the, for the article to proceed. But, certainly if it's a technicality as opposed to a spirit of the issue, I would love to get to a unanimous if in fact the final language supported that on your part.
Sure, no, I agree with that, but I really feel like we got to be specific, particularly on a project of this magnitude. I don't like to leave things open-ended this way. I really don't.
No, I totally understand. Okay. All right. Why don't we So Chris, I think we're all set unless there's anything further on your part.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And let us, please let me know where you fall out on the final language with council. If we can, if it does in fact tighten.
Yeah, yeah, they could be. Yeah, they should be done pretty. I expect them to be done because I have to meet with the folks. I have to meet everybody pre-10 anyway, just to make sure all the I's and T's are dotted for Monday night.
Okay. I mean,
and
our
I'll
vote's
speculate.
not in print
I'll
anywhere. Yeah, our vote's not in print anywhere. So if the
No, I
language
can't. I
does
can
move
put-
and
Yeah, well, I could put the vote into the motions. I mean, if you want to. I mean, so people can see it. It's up to you. I mean, I don't.
it's. Huh. How do people feel about it in the motions? Do you want to withhold it and see if we can clear it, or do you just want to put it in the vote as it stands right now? And we can always, put it in as, I guess my instinct would be put it in as is now so that people know we voted on it. And if we re-vote it, you can always articulate that when you make your motion.
Okay. That
would be my suggestion, unless others on the committee feel differently.
I agree. I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks
Thank
all
you,
of
Chris. Really appreciate it. Do we have Jason Federico for voting booths?
I am here.
All right.
Sorry, I
Floor is
lost
yours.
my phone. I left my phone during tub time and I forgot about the meeting. So the purpose of this is to currently with the 3 district polling places, we are under the appropriate number of booths. So we need to get additional voting booths. And so this is to purchase the correct number of voting booths per the Secretary of State's guidelines.
Okay. And is this a regulatory requirement or is it a best practices? How would you characterize this?
From what Carol told me, it's a regulatory requirement. There's supposed to be a certain number of voting booths per precinct, per person per precinct.
Okay. Okay. So we're not replacing or upgrading or anything like that. It's literally expanding capacity.
Yes.
Okay. So Jason, I didn't see an actual cap request. I did see the quote. Was there anything more than that or not?
I did write one up, Michelle. Did you share that with them? I think I did write one.
I thought I shared it. Did anyone see it? No?
Just the quote.
Yeah, there was a write-up associated with that quote.
Okay. Was there anything of note in it or was it really just a completed form?
It's just a completed form with it did have the backup of why we were doing it. Basically was due to the need to fill out the districts. We're currently technically under the allotment, but this is our
Okay.
opportunity to bring us up to snuff.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Michael?
No questions at all. Nope.
Sam?
No questions.
Susan?
No, I don't really have questions. If it's a regulatory requirement, I don't really know how we get around that.
Agreed. Ralph?
Yeah, just to clarify, Jason, this is not to install new electronic computer controlled.
No.
Okay, good. So this is
No.
the way we do it now, where
Yeah.
we simply black out the candidate we want and it runs through the machine as a scanner.
Yes. So
Okay.
this is strictly the only real change between the booths we have now is we're going to get the LED. All of them will have battery LED lights, so they won't be running cords all over the place in the auditorium. So that's the only real change between what you currently see.
Say that again, Jason. I'm sorry.
We're switching to LED lights so that there's no cords. Right now, you have to run cords to all the different voting booths. So these ones won't have cords associated
I
with them
see.
for lighting.
Okay, got it. Right.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I move we recommend the purchase of the voting booths.
Second.
All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Sam?
Sam Wakeman, aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Ralph?
Well, Ralph Robinson, aye, for what it's worth. Okay.
Your participation is
A
always
lot.
valued. And Brian Host, aye. All right.
Thank
Jason,
you
Thank
all.
you very much.
No problem. Sorry about the delay.
No problem at all. We're able to shuffle it up.
I also just forwarded the actual form to everybody. So sorry about
Perfect.
that.
Sorry we missed it. And we are close to being on schedule, 3 minutes behind. The next item up is the request for $250,000 for a school facilities assessment of conditions. I have Michelle forwarded last week the RFS, which is the request for services that will ultimately be put out to bid. I'd love just to hear from Michelle briefly to understand what the bidding process is. Is it expected to be competitive? What is the selection process? And then turn it over to the team from the school building facilities committee to walk us through exactly what they're hoping to achieve here.
So sure, we're putting out the bid. It's advertised to release this Wednesday.
Okay.
So we're anticipating probably 5 or 6 companies responding to the request for services. There's certain requirements in there that we put because what we'd like to do is get a designer now on board that is going to give us a true assessment of the buildings that could potentially work with us if the MSBA invites us into the process. So we wanted to make sure that that was a stipulation within the RFS. It's a pretty quick timeline. So we're hoping to get everything back before the holidays. So over the holidays into the new year, we can select a firm or a candidate to perform the building assessments because the statement of interest is due to MSBA by April 28th or April 29th. So that doesn't give a whole lot of time to assess all 3 buildings and come back with a recommendation. And it also doesn't give a whole lot of time for Patrick and Susan to complete the statement of interest. So we are fast tracking the timeline. We are going to focus more on the Cohasset High School Middle School because that is the biggest point of interest at the present time. And we've even spoken, and Jason can speak to this more, we've even spoken about breaking up the assessment period into 2 phases, whereas phase 1 of the assessment would be focusing solely on the high school, middle school, or middle school, high school. And the phase 2 would be the Deer Hill and then Joseph Osgood School to make sure that we can complete that statement of interest for the school that it is most desired to move forward with the MSBA.
Okay, but it would conceptually, even if you phased it, that would all happen in the first half of this year. Is that correct? It's just you would prioritize the middle high school to make sure that was ready for the MSBA process.
Correct.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak out of school, but the assessment that we're looking to do, I know we're asking for $250,000. We're hoping it doesn't reach that level for this first round of assessments.
But the bottom line is it's going to be competitive, right? The market's going to choose the price, not us.
100%.
Based on the scope in the RFS.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And I guess my last question is, the 250,000 estimate, where did that come from? Is that Vertex, or where did we get the rough guess here?
Yeah, so John Lemieux from Vertex gave us the $250,000 estimate based on the size and scope that we're looking for. because it's broken into 3 schools, and we want to look at everything from the mechanical systems to the structure to the surrounding grounds. So that's how we came up with that estimate.
Okay. That was it. I mean, that was it as a preview. I guess maybe we turn it over to Jason. I don't know if Craig has joined us. I know Dr. Sullivan was not able to, but I know we're in good hands. So I think we're all eager to learn more about this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Michelle pretty much said everything. I mean, the purpose of my committee is to assess all the schools. We know that the middle school, high school, just from walkthroughs, needs the most help. So that's why we're kind of focusing a little more on that side with the statement of interest, which is running parallel to getting these conditions assessed. The reason why is because we have that deadline with them to get that in. I reached out to the facilities team, and there really hasn't been a full assessment of these schools. The only thing I got back for them was the roof study that was done. I don't have it in front of me when that was. That makes sense to me. So there really is no jumping off point here. So we're basically starting at 0. We have no information, just touring the schools that we have, what they look like, touring schools around us. So this is where the facts are going to lead us to where we need to go. And whatever that may be, I don't know. We'll have to see when this comes back. And like Michelle said, the 250 came from our town Vertex, our town OPM. So we felt comfortable with that number. And time will tell if that number is accurate or not. We believe it is. And we're just going to have to go until there's a point that it isn't, and then we'll revisit the issue. So that's where the school committee is at right now, school facilities committee. Fact-finding mission only.
Okay. In terms of scope, is who put together the scope and how comprehensive? We've had a chance to glance at it, obviously,
yep.
But who put together the scope, and what was the sort of the thought, and how deep do you want people to go, I guess, in this assessment?
Like I stated, we have no information on these schools, no reports, I haven't gotten anything. I've requested stuff. So this is going to give us everything that we could possibly need. And that's the reason why we want to do it. It's not just for middle, high school. It's for the facilities team to use. It's for whoever wants the information to, fix this, fix that. If they don't know what's an issue, it's not going to get fixed. And this report is going to tell us what we need to do going forward to keep these schools running. But yeah, no, John from Vertex helped us put this together along with the full committee.
Okay. And Michelle, I guess a question for you. This report, is it fair to assume that this report would have what we would need in order to approach MSBA for smaller projects, such as, for example, a roof replacement or, an HVAC system or air handler replacement? Is it fair to assume that, all those types of things would be captured in this report, and that the existence of the report would evidence that, in fact, we're being systematic about this, and perhaps give us a better shot at MSBA funding, even for a smaller, more defined project?
Yes, and the answer is yes. The way this is structured is it looks at several different components. We talked it through on the facilities committee meeting last week. In the impetus of this entire thing is that we want to be able to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA. So when the designer comes back with their proposal, they're going to have to indicate to us that they're comfortable following the MSBA process. So whether it's the accelerated program or the regular statement of interest period program, we feel pretty confident that the way the RFS is structured, we will get someone that has experience with MSBA projects.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been asking a bunch of questions and kind of leaving some topics. I don't want to leave the whole discussion. Questions from the committee, Michael? Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, just some clarification, because I'm not familiar with the school facilities committee. Jason, who is on the committee in terms of stakeholders? And how often do you meet?
Currently, we meet the last Tuesday of every month, but that's going to change once we get into the end of December and beginning of January. We're going to be meeting more frequently because we'll have some answers from the survey. The committee was put together 3 selections by the select board, I believe 3 selections by the school committee. We do have 2 school committee members on this committee, and I forget how the last 3 were selected.
So it's 8? You've got 8?
9 altogether.
Okay. And you're the chair?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
8.
One thing I want to point out is the town's need for a good solid 10-year plan. And I think this report will go a long way to help the school department fill in the blanks that we do have in the 10-year plan. So I just want to encourage you and your committee to take back to them that some of us on capital budget would like to see this report used in many ways, including developing a really solid 10-year plan that has good data behind it. So I just want to make that statement, just a request.
Yes,
You and your committee.
it's my job to report to the school committee, to report back to this committee, and to report to the select board on all the findings. So once I have it, you'll be seeing my lovely face once again, and hopefully have a wonderful plan for everybody. But until then, we're just waiting for the facts to come in.
Okay.
You're muted, Sam.
Question?
Sam, any? There you go.
Does your school's facility group come up on a regular basis with all the things you're lacking in the school and things that need to be fixed? And will that be provided to this group who's doing the assessment?
They're the professionals who's going to come back with this assessment. I mean, we all have seen the buildings. We've seen the pictures from Dr. Sullivan made a wonderful presentation to us. We've toured new schools. We've seen our schools, but they're the ones that are going to tell us really the nuts and bolts of what needs to be addressed.
But do you already have some of that information?
Other than just walking around now.
You don't, other than walking around? Okay.
Yep.
That might be something the school facilities group might want to undertake, is developing on your own a list of things that need to be done.
Yeah.
We could, but like I said, I'm gonna leave it to the professionals. That's why we're hiring them. And then
Yeah, I understand. This will give you a
Starting
good
point.
start.
So Jason, it seems the focus of this assessment is really on the building themselves, not so much the functionality and in terms of, technologies and green and all that kind of stuff. It's more about whether the buildings have significant issues
at the
structurally.
current moment, yes, that's what we're looking at. We do have a subcommittee that will be putting together a survey for the stakeholders, for the teachers. Dr. Sullivan is going to be happy to pass that along to everybody. But at this point, we're not really that far down the line of anything really. That's why we really need this report.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is I was on the School Building Authority website, and I think, Michelle, you mentioned accelerated repair program. So that would be more towards fixing structural issues with the building and not necessarily bringing our, interior or capabilities inside the school up to any new standard. Is that correct?
So Susan, we had a capital walkthrough with the schools last week, and we had a long conversation about the rooftop air handlers. And since the procurement came back a lot higher than we anticipated, I think we agreed during that meeting that it was best to reach out to the MSBA and see if we could potentially apply for the accelerated program for those units. So there are components that are on the 10-year plan that we could strip away and apply that accelerated program, and see where that goes. But you can apply for both. If you apply to the accelerated program, it doesn't preclude you from applying to the main program. So you
Okay.
can do both in tandem.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I have a clarification question. Jason, you just mentioned that the town's DPW or facilities folks have not weighed in on this with you? Or have they been part of
Yeah, they have.
the discovery process?
Yep, I met with Nick. And
Oh,
that-
good, okay.
the one
That's
that,
really what I
yeah,
wanted.
no, he's the one that got me the roof survey. So I know we had something. Just,
Right.
That was it. Because I asked him if he could dig up a comprehensive survey buildings. And then he didn't
Right.
have.
Nick's predecessor, Mark, is it Kelly, who's now retired? Really great guy and so knowledgeable over the years he spent. Had an awful lot to say when I toured the buildings with Mark when I first joined I joined the advisory. Certainly hope that we pull a lot of that knowledge on history and what happened and why things are the way they are into the Vertex review. So again, just a suggestion, recommendation, really leverage their knowledge and their backgrounds in dealing with these problems day to day. Thanks.
So Ralph, any questions, thoughts?
Well, yeah, a few actually. Right away, I was struck by the second opening paragraph here. It says that the owner is seeking design services to conduct an existing condition study of existing buildings, with the information gained to be utilized in the submission of a statement of interest by the town to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Now, there's no qualifier in that at all. In other words, normally what you would say is something like, in the event that it qualifies, you would say that, right? In other words, there's no qualifier in here. It just says you're going to do this, irrespective of what the assessment actually produces. So normally a statement like this would have a qualifier in it in the event that you do not think that, in fact, this is qualifies to actually go before the committee. I would add that in. I think it needs a qualifier. The second is that this is a very subjective assessment. If you read this thing, it says observe, 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 assess, observe. I'm just reading all the paragraphs and I'm saying, my goodness, that's not quantitative. That's qualitative and subjective. If I were thinking about how to do a thing like this, you really need to have some quantitative numbers associated with what you're talking about. Or it compares to something else that should have, that is in some other school. So I look at the document like this and say, this is a very loosey-goosey document. I'm sorry to say it that way, but I believe it is. And the way it feels is though it presupposes you're going to send this in irrespective of what it says and how subjective it all is. Now, that's a very harsh assessment. That's how I would read that if I were sitting in your shoes, to be honest with you, Jason, because that's the way it looks. So.
Well, this is a standard design RFS that has been used for other districts as well. So this isn't something that Vertex just made up. It's a standard boilerplate, and this is usually what they say.
Okay, I would not. I don't think that's a good way to put it, but that's all right. It's your call, not ours. Anyway.
So Ralph, can I just add a little color to that?
Okay.
So this is preliminary as far as the building assessments. Once we submit the statement of interest, if in fact we're told that we should submit the statement of interest, once we submit that statement of interest and get accepted into the program, the MSBA then has you go through this entire complex designer study. And that's when it gets more qualitative, quantitative. They dig deep into everything from should the school be in the place where it is? Does it fit the number of students? I mean, they even go as far as look at regionalization. So this is very preliminary to get invited into the process. And if we don't get invited, then we don't go any further. But the MSBA will dictate, the level of detail needed once we're invited into the process.
Okay, well, thanks, Michelle. It just feels as though for $250,000, you're not getting a lot. That's all I can tell you. The only other comment was we had actually authorized a very substantial study of all of the capital in the town. I don't wonder whatever happened to that study, which was going to produce for us a 10-year capital plan associated with all the maintenance required. I wonder whatever happened to that plan. Does anybody know? There was a name to that.
Are you talking about asset essentials?
Might have been that. I'm remembering the name of it. There was a specific name and there was a company assigned to actually go tell us exactly what we needed to do in the next 10 years. Yep.
So I think you're referring to asset essentials,
Okay.
and we did do that. What they did is they took inventory of all of our mechanical systems,
Okay.
and they assigned a lifespan to it. So we can pull up in our system at any time the boiler at Wilcott Commons or the boiler at the high school, and it'll
Right.
give us, the life expectancy when it should be replaced. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I think it was because it was supposed to allow us to figure out how much money we should be spending over a number of years to actually maintain the equipment. That's what it was, or maintain
Okay.
the buildings. Yeah.
Yep, and I think that's it. And I really haven't played around with that system, but we did play around with it the other day for a few minutes to figure out by building what the 10-year plan should be. So that's something I think we could sit down with and play with, and you could get a very good picture of what the next 10 years look like based on the mechanical systems of each building.
Well, that seems to me that should be folded into what whoever you choose as an architect gets to see, so that in fact they're not going to reinvent all of this if it's all been done once. Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
It's an interesting point. It almost begs the question as to whether or not you should, print out the content of, or share a digital copy of the content of that study vis-a-vis the 4 buildings or 3 buildings, as you refer to them, and share that, in the context of this RFS so that people know that already exists.
And John Lemieux indicated that same thing, Brian. He said if we can pull down any reports, we should share them.
Right.
Once we get the Q&A portion of the RFS,
Okay.
we'll start sharing documents like that.
And Jason, just to circle back, I appreciate you going to Nick and getting the roof report and asking for what else he had, but I think actually this is what we were probably all thinking of having funded in the past. So hopefully there's some good asset lifespan data in that database that came out of that last project that can be used as a foundation for this next one. And Michelle, just a question for you. You mentioned, you use the word "they" in the context of the process multiple times. I assume, they will consider regionalization. They will consider, is the school building in the right place? I'm assuming that that they is the MSBA, but I just want to get clarity.
Yes, they is MSBA.
Okay, so can you give us a little color as to, what MSBA is actually does in the context of these projects? Because it sounds like it's a lot more than just thinking about whether or not they're going to write us a check. It sounds like they're pretty involved in the question of, whether or not there's a reason to write us a check. And if they do write a check, what the project should look like. But if you and Jason could perhaps give some color on that, I don't want to misrepresent it.
Right, and nor do I. So I'm not 100% familiar with the MSBA process. I can just reiterate things that we have learned from John Lemieux at Vertex through his last presentation. And he indicated the level of detail the MSBA will go through is significant enough that we will determine at the end of the process if in fact a new school is needed or if it's just a renovation, what components need to be renovated, and why they don't believe we need a new school. And they'll dig down to that level of detail. And going through the process doesn't ensure you're going to get 50% funding because it's all based on, the economics of the community. And even if we were to get funding from MSBA, there's no guarantee that the funding would be, even substantial enough to make a difference if it's an MSBA funded project or if it's a town funded project solely. So there's a lot to consider there. And I think John has been very vocal in sharing that with us to make us understand that just because you're going through this process on a $100 million project doesn't mean you're going to get $50 million. You could get 10. So I think we'd really have to go through the process to find out, where we shake out. If they even allow us to go through the process.
Right. So this is really just to get an invitation.
Yeah, for those who are interested, their website is extremely informative, and they actually show you how the whole process works every step of the way, what they provide every step of the way. It's very informative. And my feeling is, there's a tremendous amount of value in doing this process. And if we need to have done that statement of interest to get to the point where we can work with them, then it seems like an exercise that we're going to learn a lot from and will help support decisions going forward, even if this doesn't come to fruition. Seems like we could spend $250,000 the wrong way, by not doing this work.
Makes sense. Now, in terms of timeline on the MSBA process, I've heard, some fairly long timelines. In the, let's call it the replacement, the school replacement scenario anyway. Jason, Michelle, could you give us some color as to what that would look like? And I also understand that, that there are some members in the committee that would like to see something done much more quickly that, that might be by definition much smaller in scope. But can you just share sort of, what the timelines are that you're hearing from Vertex or others and how that might play out?
Sure. So the statement of interest period closes at the end of April. We were told don't anticipate hearing back till at least August or September to know if you're even invited into the process. And once you're invited into the process, it's likely going to be another 6 to 8 months before you hear from them about your next steps. So we are about a year away from knowing what the next steps would be if we're invited in. We'll know by special town meeting if we've been invited, but we won't know anything else probably until the following April as to what the next steps would be for us.
Okay. So it's a year before we'd even know what next steps are, and then we'd have to take those next steps. And I assume there's some iterations, but I've heard, I've heard multi-year timelines in terms of, let's just say hypothetically, if we're to build a new school, what's the range of timeline for that? And if it's a smaller project, is there something lesser we could do with the MSBA in a shorter period of time?
So I think the timelines realistically are anywhere between 3 to 5 years. As far as the shorter timeline, I think we should start approaching those accelerated repair programs for the larger items. Because they do, whether they're going to renovate, replace the school, they do like to see that you're still maintaining the school
Right.
for the children and for the use of the school. It's an educational facility. They want to make sure everyone there is safe and that the building is maintained. So they're willing to invest in the building in the meantime. So it doesn't hurt us. And I think we should start picking off some of those items. And I believe Patrick and Susan agree with that approach.
Okay. I don't have any further thoughts or comments. I think everyone's spoken at this point. Does anyone have any other further thoughts or comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay. I will entertain a motion. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this or not approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay. Can you articulate the motion, please?
Make a motion to approve $250,000 for, I'll use the right wording here.
An existing condition study, I think is what it is. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think I would probably use Ralph's wording on this and not the the wording in the town manager's motion, which is non-specific.
Right. Do you think that's enough, just to say the existing condition study for Cohasset Public Schools?
Let's see if this was an existing condition study of its existing buildings with the information gained to be utilized in the submission of a statement of interest by the town to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Just use the language in the actual proposal.
Okay, so you're talking about paragraph 2.
I'm talking about paragraph 2, just 250,000 for that purpose. Yeah, right.
You know, we just a comment. I mean, we'd also be using this study for the purposes of planning future capital expenditures, with or without the submission, right?
Yeah,
Should we perhaps add that?
for one specific thing? It's for, and upgrading, maintaining. It's not just for one thing.
Except
Yeah,
that's not what you're spending money on. I don't think so, Brian. This is specific to this purpose, and we can use it ultimately, but I can't see adding anything into the language that's here.
So maybe we clarify this. I mean, I think, and Michelle, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the request to the MSBA is specific to just the middle high school building. Is that correct?
Oh,
Yes, you can only, there goes my power again. You can only submit for one building. You can't submit all three.
Okay. So the work done on the other 3 is going to be for accelerated repair purposes to the extent that it's MSBA filings, or it could be used for just general planning across all the buildings for future capital planning purposes. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. Ralph, does that clarify?
Yeah, I guess so. I just like it to be specific to what the language says. That's all. You don't want it to map. It doesn't quite map what you really mean, but that's all right. So, because the second paragraph is exactly what you're saying, what you want it for. And the other one comes under goals and scope rather than exactly what the 250,000 is for. But do it whatever way you want. It's obviously I'm not a voting member, so.
I'd certainly open to the committee. My instinct is I'd like to capture the spirit of this, and the spirit is, it's a study that we can use to apply for a new building. It's a study we can use for, to apply to the MSBA for accelerated repairs. And it's a study that we can use to, plan our own future capital planning and repairs with or without the MSBA. It's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But I'm just one person here. What do other people feel?
So
I
Michelle,
agree
a
with
little
that, Brian.
clarification on the accelerated repair piece. Do you have to have filed an SOI to be considered for accelerated repairs, or is that?
It's completely separate. It's a different statement of interest that you would provide, and it's specific to the mechanical, I guess, I don't know how else to say it, but the mechanical units you're looking to replace.
Mhm.
So Michelle, technically in the accelerated repair program, is that also an SOI? It's just a different SOI? Okay, so what Ralph has said is correct. I mean, this is going to be used for all forms of SOIs. Okay. So Ralph's right. I think the language does work. I mean, we can use it for other things, but that is the primary purpose.
Brian, let me give you what I've written here right now in the minutes and see if this works. We have a motion to approve or recommend approval of $250,000 in free cash for an existing condition study for Cohasset schools to be used for Mass School Building Authority grant funding and for planning other future capital expenditures for the Cohasset schools. I'm going to give it again.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It doesn't track exactly what the RFS says, or which is what Ralph had suggested we, literally lift. But conceptually, I'm fine with what you just said. How do other people feel about it?
Do you want me to read it again?
If you like, I'm just more interested in hearing from how people are responding to it. But if you need to read it again, maybe that'll get a response.
Sure.
I
Okay.
think it's fine.
Okay.
Susan? Susan, you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Do you want to hear it again?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just trying to figure out like what's the real differentiation between, the clarity, if we're gaining anything from getting specific, I guess.
Okay. A motion to recommend approval of $250,000 from the town free cash for an existing condition study for Cohasset schools, period. The $250,000 will be used for Mass School Building Authority grant funding applications. I'll add that right now. And for planning other future capital expenditures for the Cohasset schools.
I'm okay either way. If other
Yeah,
people
I'm
have a
fine
strong,
with
if other people have a strong preference for the exact language that's that Ralph suggested, which is right out of the RFS, I'm fine with that too. But I just ask people what their preferences are. Michael, what's your preference?
What I just wrote.
Okay. Sam, Susan?
I'll go with either one. I mean, I think we may be trying to make this too particular.
Yeah, I feel like we're overcomplicating it. I like the language that's already in the document.
In the RFS.
Yep.
Okay. If you have a preference, let's go with it because I think it captures it. So Susan, do you want to go ahead and make the motion?
Which one are we voting on?
Yeah, give it to me
We're
word
about
for
to
word.
find
please.
out. Well, let me ask Michael, if we go with the one that Susan prefers, is that going to impact your vote?
No.
Okay. Sam?
I don't care.
You don't care.
I want to
Okay.
hear the motion we're going to vote on.
All right. Let's get on with it. Susan, do you still want to make a motion?
Let's see if I can get it right now. Okay, I'll make a motion for 250,000 for an existing condition study for Cohasset Public Schools with the information gained to be utilized in the submission of a SOI by the town to the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Would anyone like to second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Michael Dick,
Aye.
Sam Wakeman,
Sam Wakeman, aye.
Susan Franklin,
Aye.
Ralph Dormitzer.
Ralph Dormitzer, conditional I, obviously.
Understood. But you're one of us, Ralph,
Yeah, I know it, but it doesn't count.
forever.
Uh,
With Brian Host, aye. All right. So Jason, we look forward, all of us look forward to working with you and your team on this. It's going to be a
All right.
valuable planning asset, no matter how it's used.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Good night.
All right. So next on the agenda was liaison assignments. Sam forwarded last week the liaison assignments from last year. And we can do whatever the committee would like to do. We can mix it up. We can keep, keep assignments to the extent people like their assignments. I just sort of open it for suggestions.
Well, I'm just to let you know, Brian, I am happy to liaison with whoever you would like me to liaison with.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Have others had a chance to look at the list from last year, and does anyone have a view? But I can read the list if anyone doesn't have it.
I've read the list and I like it. And I also want to just say hello and introduce Mike Barclay, who is on the call right now. He is the advisory committee liaison to capital budget. And he and I had a chance to sit down for coffee a few weeks ago. And certainly agree that it's really helpful to have a liaison from advisory over to us and from us back over to advisory. I would certainly enjoy being that liaison back over to advisory, but I don't want to push my way into the job. If anybody else wants to, by all means. But I think it's good for us to have a presence and listen into their deliberations and understand and bring back to this committee, understand some other folks' rationales for how things are voted on. And Susan will ask you for score updates.
Well, thank you, Michael.
I can only keep my husband away from the television for so long. We live in a small apartment right now.
Right.
Thank you, Michael Dick. And Mike Barkley, thanks for joining us. Can you say hello and wave so we can just we can all see you on screen?
It's gone.
I think he left to watch the game.
Oh no.
What's the score in the game, Susan?
Hasn't started, has
The
it?
kickoff is just happening.
Oh,
All right. And I know we had it looked like we had Jean Healy-Dippold on for some time. Jean, are you there?
She's not.
No?
She also dropped off.
She's also gone. Okay. Now does anyone know, is she officially our liaison from the Board of Selectmen?
I think so.
I think she is.
Yes.
Okay.
yes, she is.
Okay. Super. So we should all make a point of welcoming her and establishing relationships. All right, back to back to the liaisons. So let's. I guess my question is: does anyone want to make any changes to this, or does anyone have a specific assignment they'd like to add or drop?
I'm comfortable with what I have, which I believe is IT. And do I also have sewer? I'm not, I looked at the list before and of course.
You've got IT, so you've got DPW.
Okay.
and IT.
And I'm happy with those. And I would volunteer to be the liaison over to advisory
Okay,
to add.
yep. Okay. Susan Franklin, what would you like to do?
Right now I'm on facilities, which I've been, I think, on since the beginning of my tenure with the group. Elder Affairs and Town Hall. I'm fine with that.
Okay. No interest in making any changes or trying anything new? Or you're good?
No, I think I'm fine with that.
Okay. Ralph, we've got you on public safety and water and
Water and
sewer, it looks
sewer.
like.
Right, that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah,
those
so
are
what would you
fine.
like to do?
Well, that's fine. I suppose that one thing probably would be IT for me, but I don't have to do that. But water and sewer does not take a great deal of time, as it turns out. Public safety does take some time usually. But anyway, I'm okay with just those assignments.
Hey,
I can always-
Ralph, would you partner with me on IT?
Yeah, I'd love to do that, actually.
Let's do
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to do
Sam,
that.
are you willing to give up IT?
Am I?
Yeah, given Mr. Dormitzer's eagerness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to take Sam off of IT and we're going to add Ralph. Okay. And Ralph, do you want to stay on water and sewer? That leaves you with 3 assignments, which is fine. Some people have them, but you don't necessarily need to take on that much.
Yeah. Water and sewer is not highly time consuming, as you can imagine. So I'm
Okay.
okay with 3. If that's you want to leave it with 3, that's fine with me. So
Okay. So I've got you on public safety, IT, and water and sewer.
Yep.
We've got Francine on facilities along with Susan, and schools along with myself. And then I am on schools, public safety. So schools with Francine, public safety with you, Ralph. And I've basically been spending a ton of time on the town hall project separately. But
You're also liaison to the select board, yeah?
I guess that's right.
And could you give me Francine's again, please?
Francine is facilities and schools.
Got it. Thank you. Is it Lyon or Lyons for Francine?
I believe it's Lyons, Lyons. I'm
Okay,
virtually certain. Yeah.
It is Lyons.
thanks.
Okay. So now that we know where our areas of focus are for the next year, we can move over to the fiscal 23 capital requests received. Actually, any other questions or issues on liaisons before we close the matter?
What about finance?
It's a good question.
Like liaison with Don Pyatt?
I'm willing to do that if nobody else wants to do it.
That'd be a good thing.
Great idea, Michael.
Sam, what else do you have now? Just as I finish.
Oh, I
up?
can't remember. I was in a position where I could stick my nose into anything, but now I'm being restricted.
No, you're always welcome. As long as you don't break public meeting laws.
Sam, you're on DPW, town hall, and water and
Water
sewer
and
right
sewer.
now.
Yeah, I'd like to continue on town hall because it's sort of the middle of it,
Yeah,
the whole project. If that makes sense, but anybody else, come with me. I'm not greedy about it.
no one ever accused you of being greedy.
So Sam, you've got town hall along with Susan inside the building, and then I think with regards to the town hall project, you've been on it and I've been on it. Probably makes sense to get
Town
through
hall
this.
project is what I'd like to continue on. But if you want me to do town hall too, I can do that.
So you're still on it on this list. Do you want to come off?
On what?
Town hall, operations fundamentally, clerk, permitting,
Yeah,
conservation.
I don't
board.
need to. I can come off that if you'd like to.
Okay, so we need a wingman for Susan on that one. Anybody else want to pick it up?
I'm happy to do it with Susan. I'll continue if you want.
Maybe we just leave that alone, and if it comes to bear, Sam, that you want to scale back, maybe Francine would want to pick that up, or maybe I'll find I've got more time than I am expecting.
Well, I'm already scaling back a fair amount anyway, so I've shoved most of it at you, Brian.
which is why I'm hesitant to take on too many more sort of liaison roles, because I'm not sure I totally understand what I've got myself into yet, but I will soon.
You'll learn.
From the best. All right, so we'll leave you there for now, Sam, on both town hall internal and town hall, the building project, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
And we can always adjust as we get into this if it's problematic. Now, the next item is the 23 capital requests received, and it's 8:24. We're running about 20 minutes behind schedule. Sam, a very optimistic schedule, I might add.
It is a very optimistic list, but that's okay.
Hope for the best, right? So
Well, you can ask for anything. It doesn't mean you're going to get it.
So Sam was kind enough to put together a tracking spreadsheet listing all of the requests that we've received so far. Hopefully everybody's received that, had a chance to glance at it. I'd actually love some guidance from you on this, Sam. At this point in the process, I mean, we have the list, we have the requests. It feels like the liaisons now have their assignments. It's probably time to take these requests and go have liaison meetings, find out, what these requests are all about. But I do think it might be worthwhile just to glance at the list quickly and see if, there's anything that jumps out that's giving people angst or perhaps piquing critical questions that we can give to our liaisons now to take into their meetings.
I see a lot of 7-digit numbers in the school department. Just saying.
In the schools department.
Yes.
So we're probably looking at something different. Sam sent a spreadsheet that was capital request FY23. And there are.
Oh, maybe I was looking at Michelle's folders. Okay, so let me pull up Sam's tracking sheet.
I mean, there certainly are 7-digit projects further out, but for this year, there are not.
So anyway, keep going and let me pull up that.
Yeah, so I just thought it might be worthwhile to just quickly tick through these and see if there are, questions that jump to mind. Let's just do this rapid fire. It's not with the intention of deliberating these, but, just give our liaisons that whatever questions jump to mind is kind of my thought, so that people can take those into the meetings. Is that something people feel would be constructive, or do you want to just go our separate ways and do the liaison meetings? I'm open either way.
Well, at this hour, I think, Brian, it's probably best to let people take a look at all of these things and then spend some time with whatever assignment they've got. There's
Okay.
an awful lot there to talk about. So this is probably kind of a late hour to start going through that.
Okay. Do people see anything? Is there anything that people feel is missing? I mean, the one thing that I would expect to see on this list that's not here is the school bus lease, which is an annual renewal and has to. And I think we're in year 3 of a 3-year lease. So there's not just a funding request that that needs to be funded. Otherwise, the bus fleet disappears. But I think there's also probably a bigger question as to whether or not they do a new 3-year lease, extend for a year, and then do something different, or just do something completely different right now. So I do anticipate that's a topic that needs to get sorted out and will probably require some real thought. I'm not really sure what else was I would have expected to see here that I didn't, but I'm curious if anyone else sees anything on this list that's kind of piquing an idea.
Interestingly enough, Brian, although I went through the detail that Michelle had provided, I don't think I saw a list from Sam, and I don't see it on my emails either. So might have got missed somehow. But anyway,
I can forward it. I found mine and I can forward it to you.
okay.
Let me
Because
just,
at this point, I know the detail, but I don't know it's summarized.
Well, this is just an Excel spreadsheet that sort of lists the projects with the amount. That's
Okay.
all it does right now.
So it covers all of the departments then, Sam?
Well, yeah, I think so. Unless
Okay.
I forgot somebody.
Okay. I only use Michelle's list.
I
didn't
went
try to
through
figure
the
it out.
capital requests
Okay.
and I think I got them all. If I didn't, Michelle will let me know.
So I am working, and I started it today. I'm working on updating the 10-year plan with what was approved last year, what's being asked this year, and projecting everything out. So you have that full picture again. So you know how much everyone received last year and for what projects, and then what they're asking for the next 10 years.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay.
And everyone has access to that folder now?
I'm not sure.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Michelle, there are times when I try to log in and my credentials are rejected.
Oh,
And then there are
really?
other times when you send me a folder and I click on it and I can see inside the folder. So I don't know what's going on.
I've experienced something similar, Michael. When I try to log in with Chrome on my desktop, I get rejected.
Yeah,
But if I go right to, the Microsoft,
the Edge
on my
browser.
browser, right to Microsoft without going through my Chrome sign on, then it doesn't reject me. So it must have something to do with Chrome.
Okay,
But
I'll
you
try
have to,
Edge.
if anyone's having trouble finding it, you actually have to go to an email first from Michelle. You sent an email invitation,
Yeah,
and then you have to accept that invitation. And once you do that, the folder is available to you.
so Brian, just to answer your question, I am looking at Sam's tracking sheet, and great job, Sam. You saved us all a lot of hassle. So I see 3.2 million. And the first question that comes to mind, which is unanswerable right now, is how much money will we have to spread around? So I think each of us as liaison need to go back to our groups and try and work out the priority, or the prioritization, where they fit in the overall scheme. How much of a case can they make for what they're asking for? That would be my recommendation.
I told
Absolutely.
Michael, Michelle, I wonder if we should, when we ask for capital requests from various departments, ask them at the same time or put on the form their priority order, because we're going to ask that same question every single time.
Yep, might as well get into it now.
Yep, and during the internal review we have with Chris, we do ask them to prioritize, so I have that information and I can
Great.
plug that into the 10-year plan.
Okay.
Or if you can take,
That's super.
if you can take
That'd be
Sam's
helpful.
list, plug it into that, because that's really what's going to help us.
Is the list on the OneDrive, Sam?
I'll forward it to you now,
This-
Michelle.
No, it's
Perfect.
not on in
Actually,
OneDrive. I didn't put it up on OneDrive yet. I can
Okay,
to do that.
Michael,
so
Michael forward it to me. I'll prioritize and then I'll put it up there.
Okay, all right.
Michael, I actually had to modify it a little bit because the totals weren't working. It's actually 5.7 million, not 3.2. That number's in the wrong column.
Oh, good.
And that doesn't have DPW on there.
Oh, good. And
So,
we probably have what, about 2.5 million to hand out?
I'm just saying, before you send it to Michelle, it needs a little,
Yeah, I did. I forgot DPW.
because you don't have anything for them yet.
I don't know. I
No, I
gotta,
know you don't.
Okay.
They haven't given me their, we've sat down with them. They gave us their quotes, but they haven't anything in email.
well, maybe they won't get anything.
So Michelle,
Yes.
what would it take for Chris to convene a meeting of his department heads and ask them as a team to start ranking their requests? So IT has 2 line items for 600,000. Where does that fit in the overall needs of the town? Who can help us figure that out? And I think it would be Chris. These are all his departments.
Yeah,
Well, not police and fire and schools, sorry, but many of these are his departments. And our job is to try and rank everything here amongst the different parties.
Right. And I don't think that's a difficult task. I think where the challenge becomes, and we spoke about this, and Mike, I think you brought this to our attention last year, is with this ranking system, unfortunately, things like library are always going to fall to the bottom, because they're not, life safety assets. And it seems like for the library, a lot of things are just nice to have, but it doesn't mean that they should not be considered for items that they're requesting. So when we talked about that last year, that was kind of a little kink in the process. But absolutely, we can go through and prioritize. You just want to make sure that you're giving some consideration to the departments that aren't really life safety or
Absolutely.
so.
They deserve something. I
Yeah,
mean,
but yes, absolutely. To answer your question, we can do that.
and police or fire, if they were real partners with the whole process, might say, you know what, we can take off X, Y, or Z so that library can get some of the things that they want. Because overall, there's quality of life in this town as well.
And I
And-
think that's definitely something we can do. I'll
Right.
talk to Chris about that in the morning. And I think we have a cabinet meeting coming up
Okay.
prior to the holidays. And
Yeah.
that's when everyone gets together and we can have that discussion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Susan, you mentioned you tinkered with the columns and the totals. It almost looks to me, and I haven't done I haven't tinkered with this in the spreadsheet, that it almost looks like the 3.19 million in the department total column excludes sewer,
Yeah, because they don't.
which would make sense.
Capital Stabilization Fund.
Right.
We're in water, we have to keep an eye on them. They're not gonna bankrupt themselves, but after that, they should be.
Right.
Actually, the
So it makes sense,
3190 is the sewer.
Sorry?
The 3190 is the total for sewer.
Yeah, you're right.
I just
No, you're
just
right.
clicked on it.
Absolutely. You're right, Michael. So it's
Yeah.
about 3 million without that. Okay.
Right. So if we total up column E, we should have our answer.
You got 8, 1,000,005, 2,1, 2,3.
it's 2,545,860.
And we don't know how much money Chris is gonna give us yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, so Susan, without sewer, what are the totals?
About 2,000,004.
2,545,860.
Okay,
Susan
Thank you,
is
Susan.
all over it.
got it. So we're 500 over plus DPW. Honestly, just an aside comment based on past cycles, and Sam, you can jump in here. I mean, if we have $3 million worth of requests and $2 million worth of funding, that's probably one of the least pressured processes we've navigated.
True.
Right, because sewer is an enterprise fund and therefore they're not coming to us?
Correct.
Right.
They come to us for review, but not for funding.
All right, so I'm gonna move that over, get it out of a total. And then may I suggest, Michelle, just as we have elder affairs up there, which is a quality of life, we should also have library, recreation is in there, that's quality of life. I think we should have library in there. What am I missing? Are there other quality of life departments that we should have there too?
I don't know if
But
there's
Mike,
anything
if
in
they
there for
didn't
harbor
request-
yet.
Say
Good
again?
point, Michelle. We need
If they
harbor.
didn't request anything, they didn't get listed. So that's why you don't see.
So I'm going to volunteer to be a liaison to the library.
Okay.
I'm going to reach out to them and find out if this is an oversight, or if they feel like they don't get anything anyway, so why bother? I hope not, but I'll reach out to them.
We have seen library requests and we have funded library requests. I think the only, we did an AV system, we did lighting, we've funded requests into the library. We did not jump on the, whatever it was, 1.5 or $2 million project, because I think there was a sense that we don't have the capacity to fit that in right now. But they wanted to do, I think, $150,000 or $200,000 study up front. And obviously, once you do that, there's an assumption that you're going to build the construction project that the study started. And, that's the only thing I can think of where, we weren't able to accommodate them at that time. So hopefully they don't feel like it's a complete dead end with capital budget, but they may.
I think so. I overheard Megan speaking to someone the other day, and she suggested that, it would be nice to have some new furnishings at the library. I don't know what the cost of that would be. I don't know if it meets a capital threshold. But if Mike, if you're reaching out to her, I think that's one of
I
the
will.
items that she was speaking about. So I don't know if it's something she wants and it meets the capital threshold. She's just fearful of putting it forward because of other priorities in town.
Right, and I think we should reach out and encourage people to submit. It's
Sure.
not that we're taking a stand that, well, we just don't have the money, don't even bother. We're balancing needs for the town as a whole.
There's also a big difference between, maintenance and usability, right? Versus major capital improvement projects. And my sense is that there's a lot more flexibility to make the former work at any given point in time. Whereas the big projects, you're really, you kind of have to make sure you've got a landing strip open for the plane to come down. So they are different. Okay, and I guess we need a liaison for harbor.
I can do that if you want.
You're getting a long list, Sam. If you're up for it, I mean, that's great. If you're not,
That's a good one, Sam.
Well, I see the chair of the harbor committee very frequently.
Yeah. And I'm married to someone on that committee who gives him fits, so,
So you get it too, Michael.
oh God, do I? But I think that's
They have a
great.
lot of plans to spend a lot of money, but they haven't figured out where it's all coming from yet.
Right, pish posh.
Yeah,
If you build it, they will come.
that's the feeling.
okay, so our liaison list just got a whole lot longer.
Right.
And it's all you, Sam. Okay, I mean, you know, to take Ralph's guidance, I mean, we're not going to go into these individually, but the items that jump out at me on this list are that, you know, the tennis court is back on this list, right? That's why recreation's at 800 grand with 750 of it going to the tennis court. Michelle, is there kind of any update that you can share sort of at this point in terms of what people are thinking? It was in front of us a year or two ago, and then it disappeared.
Sure. So I truly believe before approving the tennis courts, as much as, you know, my personal opinion is they need to be redone. We are going through a field study right now, and that field study is going to look at all the fields, all the recreational facilities in town, including the tennis courts, help us prioritize the needs and the capital needs of all of the fields, whether or not we need more infrastructure to support our recreational activities. So I would really like to see that study complete before we make any decisions on one particular item, even though these tennis courts, I mean, we have a fabulous tennis program. The tennis courts have needed repair over the past few years, and we've done that. We've done the necessary repairs to them. I have a feeling they will be at the top of the list when we talk about needs for the community.
Okay.
The study's ongoing. We're at phase 2 of the study, and after the holidays, you'll see a public forum where we're going to invite everybody in to really talk about the needs of the community. And that's not just, and a lot of people are thinking it really just has to do with school sports or recreational sports. It doesn't. It has to do with all types of recreational activities, from skateboarding to tennis to baseball, football, youth activities such as flag football, frisbee. So I think that'll be eye-opening to what the next step should be from a recreational perspective in the 10-year capital plan.
What's the timing on that field study?
So January, we'll have our public forum. I asked that they be able to wrap that up the first week in March so we could get something to annual town meeting if necessary. They're moving as quickly as they can to make sure it's a comprehensive study. We don't just want something cursory to rush towards town meeting. So I believe the first week in March.
Is there any thought that the tennis courts might need to be moved?
Maybe moved, maybe more courts put somewhere else. The program, there's a lot of participants in that program.
Right.
And it's not just the youth participants at the school level. It's a community court. And what's happening is, from what I understand, is that the children that play the athletic portion at the high school are taking up most of the court most of the time. So it's not being able to be used for recreational purposes from the rest of the community. So there may be a need for additional courts in town.
And is there any remaining life in these courts? I know they've been repaired and resuscitated multiple times. Is this definitely a this year thing, or is that's really what I'm trying to understand? Is this definitely a this year funding request, or is this going to end up sliding as they figure it out? And can it slide? Does it need to be done this year?
Well, that's the thing. I think that'll come out of the study.
Okay.
We've had many people look at it, and it really is at the end of its life.
It's a wreck. I understand.
So
Okay.
it's just a matter of something's worse off than this, and we're just not aware of it.
Okay. And the other big ones are obviously in IT.
Right.
So I guess Michael and Ralph, you'll have some interesting conversations there.
Right. The harbor, even, you know, we just mentioned that, but, you know, talk about the ramp and talk about some of the other docks around Cohasset Cove and so on. Would those show up here? Would that be under DPW?
Yep.
They
No, so
should.
there's a different, there is a tab for harbor. I don't know that I've seen any requests come in yet for harbor. I'll have to double check. But the boat ramp was funded last year through Seaport Economic Council and from
But there's a
Community
land swap
Preservation.
involved there, and I'm not sure if there's more money involved with that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
There's a land swap in order
Yep,
to.
no money. It's not a monetary land swap.
No. Okay.
So that was really a housekeeping item. That has been something that should have been done a while back. So there's no monetary exchange for that, and the boat ramp was funded mostly with Seaport Economic Council funds and CPC funding.
Okay, but the other docks, repairs to them and so on should show up here.
Absolutely, as well as the Harbor Master building is going to
Yes.
have to be repaired. And of course, we can apply for Seaport Economic Council funding for all of these items having to do with the harbor and the infrastructure. But their willingness to approve all of these projects for Cohasset will probably dwindle over time.
Yep. Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Susan, what's the score? Turn around.
All right, do we have anything else on the capital requests? Well, let's move to our final item of business, which is approving the minutes of November 28th. Has at least a quorum been able to review the minutes?
I have, yes.
Okay, I have as well.
I have them.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any comments or
No, good job, Susan.
suggested revisions?
Not from here.
Okay. Nor did I.
The motion, we
Yeah.
approve the minutes of the 28th.
Second,
Okay, let's roll call it. Michael Dick,
aye. Michael
Sam
Dick,
Wakeman?
aye.
Sam Wakeman,
Sam Wakeman, aye.
Susan Franklin,
Aye.
Ralph Dormitzer,
Aye.
Brian Host, aye. All right, that's it. Is there anything else? That's it on the agenda. Is there anything else I guess, just looking forward, I should probably post for special town meeting, just in case there's anything that we need to discuss while we're in session. And we may or may not do a cleanup on that town hall article, depending on the town manager's motion. So I'll post that. And then I guess the question is, when do people believe we should next meet? The next step really is liaison meetings. And so let's see, today's the 6th, I guess special town meeting's the 13th. The week after that is the 20th. Do people feel like they can do some liaison meetings and we would have anything to discuss as of the 20th, or we should really be, pushing for department meetings at this point, just in the beginning of January?
I agree with that.
The latter?
The latter, yeah, schedule our meetings for early January and meet sometime mid-January.
Okay.
And that
So
gives
next meeting would be
20th.
after the New Year's. Well, other than special town meeting next week,
Yeah,
then the next formal meeting would be in the new year. Is that good with everyone else?
yeah.
The only thing I'd suggest to you, Brian, is that we
Please.
still should meet together with the selectmen and the advisory board on some of these major projects, because we've got so many in the pipeline now. We need to have a common agreement among all of us about what moves forward and how, or if they do move forward, because you've got now everything. You've got police and fire, you've got the town hall, you've got new schools.
Right.
God knows what else there is out there. We need to have a common set of agreements about how we're going to deal with all this, and also the potential costs of it all. So,
And it's
Okay.
all articulated in the letter that we wrote in June, and I reread it today, and it's a good one. It really just very clearly lays out what we need as a capital budget committee to proceed with town hall building, and we would apply the same standards, the same parameters to public safety building and anything else.
Michael,
So-
can you do me a huge favor? Can you just recirculate that to our committee so that
Yeah.
everyone has that? And Ralph, it's a great suggestion, and Michael, it's a good point on the letter. You know, we we tend to get very busy with the capital requests in a given cycle, and then we go to annual town meeting, and it's very hard to get other people to refocus once annual town meeting comes and goes and they have their appropriations, as we're finding out with the letter that you just cited from June, right? The whole idea was, let's get people focused, before the next cycle begins. So, it's a fine time to I guess to pick up that torch again.
Okay. So Brian, as a suggestion, would you bring that to the select board chair and the advisory chair?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And if we can get them to meet, and maybe it's just the three of you to start with.
So sometimes that's a good way to get the discussion flowing,
Right.
as opposed to a big formal meeting with full committees and quorums and public statements and people dialing in to watch.
Right.
for lack of
And the
better
other
terms.
stakeholder would be Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so I need to post for STM. I need to schedule a meeting for early Jan. And I need to meet with the chairs of the select board, advisory committee, and Chris on the top, just to start the dialogue with regards to how are we going to plan as a town and as a one cohesive team with regards to our large capital projects.
Right. Basically, bring them the letter.
Yeah.
For discussion.
Yep.
Is my recommendation.
It's a great idea. Thanks to both you and Rob for suggesting it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Before we go, I've got one other small item.
please.
I don't think I have all the seconds that took place tonight. So do we care in the minutes, or do you want it in the minutes?
You
I
don't
have
have, you don't think we have all of what?
Whoever seconded the motions. I have the people who made the motions, but not the seconds for all of them.
I
That's it.
wouldn't worry about it.
I
Good.
wouldn't worry about it. I think in Robert's Rules of Order, you don't have to name the seconds. So,
Thank you.
Right.
Good answer.
right.
Ralph, you've just been promoted to parliamentarian.
Yes.
I've been through a lot of meetings of different sorts for different reasons. So I've been through a lot of this anyway. So
Well, it's great to have you. All right, I don't have anything else. Does anyone else?
not tonight.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. The time is, oh my gosh, time's so late, my computer turned off and now I need to reboot it. The time is 8:55 and we are going to roll call for adjournment. Michael Dick,
Michael Dick, aye.
Sam Wakeman,
Sam Wakeman, aye.
Susan Franklin,
Aye.
Ralph Dormitzer,
Aye.
Brian Host, aye. Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Brian.
night.
Good night for a first time. Right.
Yeah, very good. Real smooth.
Okay.
Go Pats.
Yeah,
Have a
right.
great night, all. Take care.
All right. Bye.